I am Ray, and I bring good news. All of your struggles and your worldly suffering can be over. And here's why. Because I've got Charmin Ultra Soft. You know the bears that wipe their butts comfortably? Talk about the little things in life. Smooth tear for a smoother experience on your butt. You see, life can very much be a pain in the butt. When you don't know exactly, that struggling in life is optional. Now, of course, you hear most people talk about life like it's cold, brutal, and short, like a Russian dwarf. But the fact is that the suffering that we experience, the struggles in this life, come from the burdens that we place upon ourselves. Could you imagine? And that if you just stopped placing burdens upon your own self, you would be free, because freedom is the natural and default state. Like when you're a baby, you're free. Well, you're also kind of a slave too, because you can't do anything. But you don't have all of the psychological nonsense going on. And only over time you are slowly conditioned and the life is squeezed out of your eyes until there's nothing left. Until you're a shell of what you once were. And that is what happens to us in this life. So it seems. And the whole point of spirituality is to return to that state of childlike innocence. Because that is where the freedom is. That is where the love, joy, peace. It's where the honesty is. Have you ever seen a child who's not honest? Even them lying, they're honest about it. Meaning they just embrace who they are in the moment, regardless of what that looks like. Only us, human beings, with our little psychological dramas, continuously judge ourselves as being right or being wrong. And it is in precisely that judgment that causes most, if not all, of our suffering. Because how do we know whether or not our judgment is accurate? How do we know we aren't assuming reality into existence? Like, for example, if I judge and label something as bad, well, when I experience that something, I'm going to feel bad about it. But do I feel bad about it because it's objectively bad? Or is it just because I'm thinking and judging it as bad? And therefore the bad chemicals are produced as a result. And so you see, what I've learned over time is that when you're going through the mud and you don't have Charmin Ultra Soft, you have cheap one-ply toilet paper and it's not helping the hemorrhoids. You can judge that situation as bad, or you can see that God has given you hemorrhoids for a reason. I don't know if this is a good example. Am I convincing you? Let me try harder. Do you see? Ultra absorbent. What I'm trying to say is that if you judge and label something as bad, it will be bad for you, because that is the framework from which you're perceiving your reality. But you could just as easily flip that on its head. Turn that frown upside down, why don't you? And you could find the good in every situation, in every difficult time. Like, for example, if you're using one ply, you can use that horrible experience to remind you of what you really want or who you want to be. Because think about it. You can accept yourself. You can accept your life with one ply. With only one. And you can just be like, oh, well, this is me. This is all I deserve is one ply, not two. Or you could say, I'm so sick of this. This is not helping. And that can motivate you to change, to get rid of the things that are keeping you stuck, and to actually look for and find, well, the solutions to your problems. But fundamentally, because life is just this one divine orchestra, it's just this one play. It's like we think, okay, there's the Earth, and then there's other planets, and maybe there's life on other planets, and it's like, no. Our current understanding of reality has to be completely redone. The history books rewritten, or the science books, I should say. Because we're sitting here and wondering how life emerges on the planet when it's all life. There is no Earth and not life. There is no big dead rock and not life. Everything is life. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's dust. It doesn't matter if it's a big rock. The rock is alive. Dwayne, where are you? Where's your tequila? You're killing all of us. The point is, it's all just life. And life is happening. And we are that happening. We think that life is happening to us. But we are the happening. We are life expressing itself in this unique form. And what this means is that there is no separation. There is no coincidences. There is no random things that really happen. Except for on a tiny detailed level. Everything is a story. It's like if life were a video game. It's not necessarily one of those ones where you're just free to roam around everywhere. It's more like a storyline video game where you are in a certain storyline, but there's like improvisations on the way. All this to say that life orchestrates the exact situations for us to grow. Because life isn't just growing itself. It's not even consciously doing this. So there's a fundamental drive of life. Maybe there's multiple. Let's think about it like this. Life has the drive to express itself and to always return to balance. So it's this game between order and chaos, life and death, balance, imbalance, and most importantly, separation and unity. So think about it this way. We are born into this life, technically whole and complete. We're born complete, we're born perfect. And slowly we just continue to fall and fall and fall and become imbalanced as our mind develops. Because our mind is a pointed tool which is responsible for imbalance. If you don't point your mind in the right directions, you become imbalanced. And the way you point your mind is determined, well, by your psyche, your psychology. So if you're really traumatized, you're going to be really imbalanced, you're going to be a big force of death in the world. Serial killers, bad people. And we're all a little bit traumatized. Which means that no matter what, us as humans are naturally imbalanced. We're the only species on the earth that can produce imbalance. Because of our mind. Because we can point our mind in one direction and it doesn't mean that that direction is right. And so, what happens is that us in the state of separation, ruled by the mind, because the mind creates the sensation of me, I, you, in that state of separation and imbalance, life comes to correct, return us to equilibrium, and the experiences that we go through in life are an expression of that drive toward equilibrium and balance. For example, let's just take a silly one. If in my mind I think that I'm really spiritual and high and cool, life will come along at some point to remind me that, oh no, you're still just a monkey. And if I think I'm really a monkey, well then eventually life will come along and awaken me to my not monkey nature, to my higher nature. Same thing if you have trauma around relationships. Like you always hear it. Women get with abusive men. Why? Well, if my psychology is fundamentally unworthy, if I feel unworthy and I don't love myself, I'm going to attract people who are going to help me work through that. But I can either get caught in the psychological drama of why is this happening to me? Or I can realize that the situation is my fault, or at the very least my responsibility. And it won't happen again if I can change. But the reason it doesn't stop happening is because I'm not changing. I'm not learning the lesson that life is trying to teach me. So my psyche is imbalanced. Life gives me the opportunities to check myself before I wreck myself. And if you are not checked, you will be wrecked. And that's why you see, we repeat the same patterns of behavior. The same situations repeat themselves until we learn it. Because you can't outrun yourself. It's like, when people end their lives. It's not a solution, I promise you. Because you cannot outrun your karma. You cannot outrun yourself. Whatever you don't fix in this life, you're going to have to deal with it in the next life. And whatever you don't deal with in that life, you're going to deal with the next one. But we can shorten our struggle in this existence by a lot. Simply by reframing our attitude toward life. Because until we realize that life is working out perfectly for us, until we realize that life is taking care of us, that all the problems and the so-called struggles in our life is designed specifically for us, for a purpose, and it's not just meaningless suffering. Until we begin to see that, we will just suffer and wonder why things happen the way they do. And all I can say is what I've experienced. So before awakening, there was just suffering. But that suffering led me to reflect and reflect and reflect, become more and more aware. And with awareness, you become aware of the things that were creating that suffering. And what I realized is that it doesn't matter what happens. What matters is how we respond to what happens to us. First of all, because that's the only thing we can do. Everything else is outside of our control. But it's also the only way to really grow and adapt and evolve. And that is what this is all about. You see, life is information. It's energy. That's what things are, literally. The sun is a big ball of energy, but it also contains all the infinite information in the universe. How do we know this? Because billions of years ago, a star exploded its guts and created the Earth and the solar system and everything on the Earth. So, the tree is the sun. The Earth is the sun. The humans are the sun. Everything is the sun. Everything is just stardust recycled. Energy vibrating in different frequencies. That's all it is. And that energy carries information. Light carries information. So, we come into this existence as individuals with karmic attachments, which means that information gets all knotted up in these twists and turns and knots, and that constricts our energy. It prevents the full flow of energy from being experienced. Like a stream with a bunch of sticks and stuff in it, blocking the flow. That is karma, our karmic attachments. And the more karmic attachments we hold, the more we're living in ignorance, because it's just light and the warping of that light and the transfer of that light and the transmutation of that light. But the more contorted and twisted the light is, the more darkness is. And that is the state we are in, the fallen state of ignorance. Simply because we believe ourselves to be the knots, the knotted figure. You have been naughty, have you not? And we come into this existence, this birth, and every other birth that we've ever been in, to undo and unravel those knots, so that one day the pure light of God shines forth through us effortlessly, and we become free forever, for all eternity. And that is life. That is literally the game of life. Who would have thought that the game has levels, and actually a way to win? Maybe there's more universes with different games. I don't know. But this is a very specific game we have happened to thrown into. So let me just prepare you for the rest of eternity. Why not? As Jesus said, unless you come to me as little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Because only when you're a baby are you the pure white. I'm sorry. Sometimes I can't help the racist within me. The pure light of God can shine forth without all of that psychological conditioning. One of these days I'm going to get canceled. And so, realistically, if you really wanted to just stop all of your worldly suffering today and all of your struggles, just act like a little baby with God. Not with the world, because then nothing's going to work out. But if you act like a baby with God, like a parent, God will come to you and address all of your needs and take care of you. But the problem is we don't want to give up our control of our life because we like to feel like I'm special, like I did it, I put in the work, and I'm responsible for all the good things in my life. Well, you're also responsible for all the bad things now. Which is fine, but it's also ignorance because God was doing the whole thing. We place unnecessary and ignorant burdens upon ourselves, like it's all my fault. On the surface level, you can take responsibility and change your life and do whatever you need to do. But when you look at God, It's a completely different way of looking at existence. You can't really, how should I put this? The laws of God's world are different than the laws of the world out here. But if you try to project God's law on the worldly law, things are going to work out that well. Like, for example, so in God's world, if you rely on God for everything, literally everything, you take no burden upon yourself for anything. Zero, nothing. Because you're a baby, you don't know nothing. You have no responsibilities. If you try to take that idea and bring it to the world without actually being authentic and honest about it, well, it's a type of spiritual bypassing. And you see it sometimes where you look at spiritual people and look at them, they're all spiritual, but their lives are a wreck because they're not following the rules of the world. They're trying to follow God's rule while also living in the world. But you can't do that. You have to be at both places at the same time. You can't rely on God for everything, but also keep this little secret in your pocket like, I'm gonna get everything I want and I'm gonna use my manifestation powers to take it all. Because you can't fool God. God knows all the games you're playing unconsciously. So there's different ways we have to be fundamentally when we're living in the world versus being with God. As I like to say, you want to be humble before God and prideful before the world, which means you rely on God for everything, and you trust and have faith, and you don't think about it twice. You don't worry about nothing, and you live your life from this state. But you don't just wander like a homeless person who doesn't know anything, because that happens sometimes. You just live your life like a normal human being. In fact, you could be the most powerful version of you, and not some humble beggar. The point of this is, you can spend your whole existence and multiple existences messing about in the world of 10,000 things and never get ahead and never do anything. I mean, you're always growing. You're always evolving. Life doesn't care how slowly you grow. You can spend 10 lifetimes on one lesson. It doesn't matter to life. Life is eternal. But the point is, there's a reason why in Eastern philosophy they say, get out of the illusion, get out of samsara, or maya, or whatever you want to look at it. Because it's just a meat grinder of death. It's just never-ending suffering. And that is why Jesus said, seek the kingdom of God and its righteousness first, and then mess about with the world. What this is all about, it's literally about, okay, stopping for 5 seconds, stop living, and find God within yourself. By seeking and by asking God, hey God, can you help me? I'm only using one ply and it's starting to hurt. I don't want to do this anymore. And God cannot resist you. God may not be right there with a megaphone and saying, here I am, care package for you. I've got you some Charmin Ultra Soft. God knows you need it. Because what happens is that you find what really matters in this life. Because the world is just changing. It's all just stuff. Just stuff. That's all it is. But working through the karmic attachments will be lasting. Because, for example, if I have a lesson that life is trying to teach me and I keep repeating it over and over again, well, eventually the lesson is going to be learned. I don't need to learn that anymore. It's gone forever. But until I learn it, it's never going to end. The lesson never ends. Not in this life, not in the next one, not in the next one, not in the next one. It doesn't matter. It never ends. We have no choice but to deal with what we need to deal with now in this life and not anticipate future lives because we really don't know, even though we know. How do we know this? Because karma is the law of cause and effect. It's just the information within us expresses itself as our life, as our unique circumstances. So we came into this birth on one level, pure, but on another level, a human level. We have entered into this life with all of these unique karmic attachments that eventually manifest in the specific situations in our life. But as you may be able to see, once you start looking for the lessons, once you start looking at God and realizing how God is shaping you all the time, you just become more aware of this fact that's already true, but you may not be aware of it. What this allows you to do, every single situation immediately, your mind is reflecting upon your own self to work out these karmic attachments. So you just become exponentially more and more free because you've built a mind that is a machine for freedom. It's designed specifically to overcome these karmic attachments. The whole purpose of life. Why is this the purpose of life? Because the more karmic attachments you have, the more you suffer. And the more you break free from these karmic attachments, the more you experience God. And when you experience God, it is the most important thing you will ever experience. Not because it's just a belief and that's, it's because everyone who experiences it will tell you the same thing. There's nothing else really matters all that much. It's like when you take psychedelics. Like, the psychedelic state feels more real than reality itself most often. Because for the first time, you're allowing more light into yourself. That overrides temporarily the darkness in you. Sometimes it magnifies it. The point is, we have to get out of this mentality of just living like a human ego, dealing with our human ego stuff. Because there's never-ending stuff to deal with. But once you realize the game that's actually being played, that this is all for your spiritual growth and nothing else, and that life knows exactly the right things for the 8 billion people on this planet and also the animals and the bugs. Life is taking care of all of them. And you might say, well, look at all these terrible things that happen to people like starvation. Don't you know about starvation? And what happens is that once you enter into this different reality, you break free from the prison of the world, you see the underlying perfection behind it all. That the starving people and the sick people, it breaks your heart, but at the same time you understand clearly that life knows what it's doing. And that our little human feelings are not the most important thing in the universe. Because there's a different game going on than the game we believed was going on. So we think we're just little human beings doing our thing, when in reality, we are souls incarnating temporarily as a human being. The human being, this universe, is just a means to an end. This body is just a means to an end. Now, I'm sure some Nazis could take that philosophy the wrong way. But the point is, and this is just my view of life, you don't gotta believe me. Purpose level 1 is to work out these karmic attachments so that you could become free and enjoy the bliss of the heavenly realms. Congratulations. Spa day in heaven. And in your striving upward, there is great meaning and purpose in your life, and that is the greatest thing for you that you will experience in this life. The striving upward from darkness into light. And that is purpose number 1. That is the surface level purpose that life is about. And then you go a step deeper and realize, oh, well, it's not really about getting to heaven. It's not. You are already God experiencing this drama, this process. This process of, thinking that you're a human being. And then also eventually remembering that you are an eternal soul. But God is just enjoying it all. So it's just God's divine play. It's like a movie. It is meant to be enjoyed. And God enjoys the movie through the villain's perspective, through the hero's perspective, through everything in between. And it is this framework from perceiving reality that comes with great freedom and peace and love and joy and abundance. That which we are all striving for, but are often not looking for it in the right places. And the reason this is the case is because we're no longer focused on our individual, personal problems. Like, why is this thing happening to me? Me of all people. You stop getting caught in the psychological drama and you start to realize, oh, wait a minute. This is all part of it, like Ram Dass would say. This too. When you find yourself in the midst of addiction and self-destructive behavior, oh, this too. This is all part of it. Oh, wow. God has put me here, not the demons. But if you think, it's the demons or it's your own little mistakes, it's going to cause a lot of psychological resistance and suffering. But once you understand how life works, it's not so confusing anymore. And as you unknot yourself, you stop being naughty. Filthy sinner. How dare you? Well, the truth just becomes more and more obvious because there's less and less darkness, creating ignorance. Darkness and ignorance, same thing. Light and awareness and truth, same thing. So you just naturally see God in everything. It's not like you have to try, and it's not like you have to convince yourself of, like, I'm going to pretend that everything's working out perfectly for me. You just see it that way. It's just a consequence of this realization. And the real point is because with the wrong mindset, with the wrong framework of living your life, life will drag you along kicking and screaming. Because life will force you to do things you don't want to do. It will put you in situations that are tough, that are difficult, that create a lot of suffering. Because you need it, because you're stubborn. Because your ego needs to get beaten down until death, until there's nothing left. Because the ego, like a little parasite, controls and manipulates your life and steals your life juices and ruins it. But because we believe we are the ego, well, guess what? When God comes down and smites with his mighty wrath, the ego will be destroyed. But we feel like we are being destroyed, but you're not the ego. So God, it may seem like God is against you. Which is why people in the Old Testament believe that God was just jealous, violent madman. It has nothing to do with God. It has to do with the human mind. Because when you're living from ego, God comes to you as a great judge that says you are either worthy or you are wanting. And if you are wanting, you will be destroyed by my lightning bolts. And that is what happens to us. The more we're attached to ego, the more we allow the ego to ruin our life without our awareness, the more God has to punish the ego. Not like the ego's being bad and it needs a spanking. It's like if the sign on McDonald's says, hey, you need pants to walk into this establishment. And you walk in without pants. Well, are you any surprised when the security comes and, throws you out on the street like the filthy person you are? Naughty, naughty. God appears to us as a judge because there are laws of the universe that are unchanging. And the ego either abides by those laws or it does not. Doesn't matter if you're a good or bad person. And the contrast between oneself and the law determines, the punishment, the suffering. The more one breaks God's law, the more they are punished. But it has nothing to do with God being a tyrannical, judgmental prick. It has to do with our own ignorance, not understanding the nature of reality. And you see, it is that ego that wants to control everything. It wants to be responsible for everything. It wants to feel like a special little snowflake. And that is the cost of admission to heaven. It's your pride. And it's your desire for control. It's your desire to feel like, I did this, I did everything. Me, I'm the best. But in this state, you cannot be open to God's grace. Which means that life will drag you along kicking and screaming. And because that ego is a source of imbalance, it's like, what is the thing that happens when you're sick? I should know this. Immune response? It's immune response. Where is the imbalance? Target found. Explode. Meaning that the more you allow your ego to create imbalance in your life, the more life will come along and destroy your ego. Because life is fundamentally, it's like the law, finding balance, finding equilibrium. And the more you stray from that equilibrium, the more life will pull you down or pull you up. It's the same thing that why rock bottom works. You have an equilibrium, a floor. If you go too far below, life will come and pick you up and save you, ideally. And if you try to get too big for your britches, life will come down and squeeze your butt and pull you down. Pull you down. But once you realize the true nature of life, by developing a relationship with life, by reflecting and looking at yourself and looking at life and looking at how things work, you don't even need to use the word God. You're literally just observing what you are experiencing for the first time, whereas most people are not really looking. They're looking at themselves projected onto the world. They're just looking at their own mind stuff, but they don't realize it. But once you realize it, now you can see that your outer reality is a reflection of what is within yourself. So if life isn't going the way you want it to, guess what? You can let go of the things that are keeping you there. Like stupid stories, stupid thoughts, stupid beliefs. And you can be wise and say, oh, I know nothing. The more I know I know nothing. And that opens you up to the grace of God, to flow through life with grace and not kicking and screaming. Because now you allow God's hand in your life to work out whatever it is that you're dealing with. And because God is the source of balance and harmony and love and joy and peace, well, guess what? The more you surrender, the more you naturally allow harmony into your life. And all of your problems work themselves out. Because you as the ego, working everything out is limited. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes effort. But when you surrender to God and give your burdens to God and allow God to do everything, it takes no effort on your part. It takes no energy. It's just flow. Things are happening. Problems are solving themselves without you needing to do anything. On the surface, you're still taking action. You're still living your life like a normal monkey. The difference is, it's now automatic, and you don't feel that burden. You don't feel like you are doing everything, and you stop placing these burdens upon yourself. Like, I should be doing this, and I should not be doing that. And if I do this, I'll get what I want, and if I don't do this, then I'll get what I want, or maybe not. It's all irrelevant. It's all nothing. Don't you know that babies cannot think more than like a few seconds into the future? So too, we live completely in the unknown, the fresh and eternal present that is always new. So we can't be trying to control life all that much, because when we control life, where we have all of these expectations and assumptions about how life should be, and if life doesn't match my expectations, then I'm going to be upset. You just continue to remove all of that psychological garbage, because you realize how much it's weighing you down and causing suffering in your life. And the moment you just taste a little bit of that freedom, the process is self-fulfilling. Because it's like in the past, I've tasted freedom, but when I was dealing with my psychological nonsense, I realized very clearly how much suffering that was causing me. And that awareness alone was just like, oh, okay, why would I keep doing this? Why would I keep entertaining these things that are making my life miserable? And once you taste the freedom, it's like, oh, there's nothing else that matters. I just want this. I only want this freedom. Because you found for the first time what you were looking for from the very beginning. Those who look for God find themselves, and those who look for themselves find God. Well, the orbs have been pondered. The kingdom of abundance is freely given to you. The kingdom of peace, love, joy, and abundance. Wait a minute, am I missing one? They are all freely given to you. The Garden of Eden, paradise, is the default state, but our garden, the garden of our mind, has been overrun with thorns and weeds and nonsense, earthly conditioning. And you, as the gardener of your mind, have to go in there and prune away all of the stupid mind stuff that no longer serves you. And at the end of it all, I'm sharing with you what to expect. That over time, you will become more and more clear that the garden of your mind is the Garden of Eden. That paradise was the default state. It's just been overrun with stuff. Like when a baby is born, they are pure and become more and more conditioned until old age, where they let go of that conditioning, those attachments, and die. You can see babies and old people are like the same, but just different. All you need to do is taste it. And all you need to do to taste it is seek. At least be curious. Why not? Jesus said the kingdom of God is in you. But have you ever looked? I'm disappointed. Literally all you got to do is embark on the journey. Everything else will take care of itself. Because God wants to play this game with you. It's God's great game of hide and seek life that is. So play the game and enjoy it. And enjoy all of it. Enjoy the rainy days. Enjoy the sunny days. Realize that the villain and the hero are both equally important to the movie. That movie is made for you. But only until we realize that we are beyond the movie Can we be free from its illusions? Because if you're in Jurassic Park and you believe there's a real T-Rex chasing you, you're probably going to poop on accident. But once you realize it's just a robot, we're on set, then it's like, oh, okay, I don't actually have to be scared. I just have to pretend. But at the same time, you can enjoy the process and enjoy the final movie. Because now you're living from a place of freedom. You're not dealing with all of these psychological burdens that are ruining your life, and so now you actually have the freedom to enjoy your present experience, no matter what happens. Otherwise, when bad things happen, you're going to feel down. When good things happen, you're going to feel up. You're going to get pulled around your whole life with temporary glimpses of peace. But when you follow what I have showed you here, you have everlasting peace. It doesn't go away, no matter what happens. And that everlasting peace, it is the true riches. But everything in this world is dust. Oops. Oh no, I have destroyed my pyramid of worms. I am Ray. Visit my coolest store. Much peace and many blessings. And remember, just be.